Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. What a blowout by the Philadelphia 76ers last night against the Raptors to win Game 1. I don't want to kill the mood early on, but full disclosure, I did not experience this game the same way that I anticipated or with the full emotions that I would have liked to. I had a bad situation happen in life, and I'll just keep it 100 with you. That's what I do here, and I feel you deserve to know exactly what, kind of went down throughout this for me. And my puppy got attacked by a Rottweiler around 5:30 last night, and we had to rush her to the hospital. It seems like there's a broken jaw issue. We were sitting there for about 6 or 7 hours, so it was such an emotional journey. I'm still kind of shook by the whole thing. The waiting time, though, I was able to watch the whole game on my Teams app. Not that that was preferred by any means, but just to lay it out, that's how I consumed what happened yesterday. So in terms of X's and O's and strategy, all the rotations, every single little detail that I love to emphasize and write down in a notebook, it just wasn't there for me fully, but I did still get to see what happened with Tyrese Maxey in the third quarter. It was unbelievable. 20-plus points the way that he exploded in that quarter. Finished with 38. That was aggressive as hell from him. He finished the game with 21 shots. He led the team with the most field goal attempts, and the reason why that's so damn important is because we are watching a young kid grow into a ridiculous superstar. On Saturday early morning, we had on Paul Hudrick on The Fanatic, and I asked him, look, Tyrese Maxey jumped from 30% from three to about 43% from three. Is that real? Will he fall back into the norm considering the length and the athleticism of the Toronto Raptors, right? Will it become more of it was such an insane, massive improvement. It's just so hard to think because it's so rare for it to be so damn insane that it's so rare. It's so rare. Is that real? And he goes, Broads, it happened over 82. I would feel differently if Maxey did it for 10 games, 15 games in the regular season, but all throughout the entire process of when he got here to where we are now, there's enough of a window to feel comfortable thinking that Tyrese Maxey could perform on the biggest stage even when the game slows down. I wasn't disagreeing with that. I was just wondering his thoughts. Paul Hudrick, of course, covers the Sixers for Liberty Ballers. And look at that. I'm thinking to myself, damn, what a way to legitimately start your NBA playoff career. I know there were pieces last year where he got thrown in there and whatnot, but that's not the same as, hey, Maxey, go do your thing. He took more field goals than Harden. He took more field goals than Joel Embiid. He took more field goals than Tobias Harris. And it just shows you at his age to say, I'm going to win it. We got ISO ball. Move, go in the corner. I got this. And no one could stop him. Speed. The only thing that's going to stop Maxey, when you think about what Nick Nurse can do, is really just missing shots. He might not execute at the same rate because that was unbelievable. He might not make as many threes, which could change the flow of a certain game or the flow of a third quarter, which I could hear the reaction and the tone from the fans. Here we go again. Doc Rivers is blowing a lead. And that's not what I thought in that moment. I thought, the Raptors are going to make a push because in the NBA postseason, it's a game of runs, and the Raptors are not bums. They did get into some foul trouble, though, and they ended up fouling out a few guys, Fred VanVleet, Boucher. And Nick Nurse is already bitching and complaining at the referees, trying to set up game 2 differently, trying to set up the series probably differently when it heads back to Toronto as well, which is the name of the game. We would probably prefer Doc Rivers to do the same exact thing if we witnessed something, even though I don't agree with Nick Nurse. But I'm just saying, playing the game and trying to earn something as the series go on, that's what coaches do. And I don't agree with what his assessment was, but I understand the logic behind it. Realistically, Doc Rivers won round one, and we had concerns and stated that if you think about mano a mano, who's going to win the coaching matchup, and the Raptors had the advantage. I'm not going to react to one game and say this is what it's going to look like every single time, but it's nice to know when it seemed like the national media, the sexy pick was the Raptors. Oh, the Raptors are going to easily take down the Sixers, and they're going to punch them in the mouth, and the Sixers are going to go home early. There was a lot of that nationally. The fact that they win the way that they did, it was clean, it was crisp. In the first half, they had 0 turnovers. They finished with 3 as a team, and one of those was a shot clock violation. Joel Embiid didn't even have the most outrageous night. The fact that you could win as loud as you did without him even shining, it's scary to think what can happen when he does shine. And it wasn't because he couldn't or he was incapable of it. It's every player stepped up. Tobias Harris finished 9 of 14 from the field, knocked down 3 threes, had 26 points. Look at that efficiency, grabbed some rebounds as well, moved the basketball beautifully as well, wasn't afraid to put up shots without hesitating. So everyone was dialed in. Everyone did their role. And I wonder how much of this relates to the idea and the mindset behind Doc Rivers and how he approached this, quote, mini training camp that they did during this 1 week off while there were the play-in games going down. Apparently, there was some heavy trash talk. There was an insane back and forth. There was a lot of people going after each other in the group chat. It got hostile. I love that, right? We talk about coaching where there's a big thing to notice there, which is just how the head coach got them prepared. And we know they don't have a lot of practice time. So during the regular season, when you're not getting those reps and getting James Harden incorporated the way that maybe you would like to when you had some days off to establish a set idea and beliefs, well, it's fair to say that there was a different James Harden out there. It wasn't the most efficient in the world, but the difference was the threes, the step-back threes. He finished with 14 assists. Not surprised. He's going to get everybody involved. The half-court set looks completely different. You can get everyone active for sure and get them in good places to succeed due to the spacing not being a disaster. I love Doc Rivers going with Danny Green. Not that I love Danny Green's performance by any means. He shot 1 of 6, made 0 threes, 0 for 5 from deep, but it's just the idea behind you're not going to have Matisse Thybulle in Toronto. The cohesiveness in having him play out there, even if it's not what we want in terms of knocking down shots, there's still something to be said about him being respected around the perimeter, which allows others to get going because you know if you give him enough shots, well, it's still a deadly weapon that has had a ton of success in this league. I wouldn't want to live and die with giving him too many open looks as a whole. I know yesterday, I should say, wasn't the smoothest from him, but I just love the fact you look at the offensive rebounds from the Sixers in that first half. The Raptors are a great offensive rebounding team. They finished with 7 as a whole. The Sixers had more than that in the first half with 8. They finished with 10 total. The emphasis, clean up that defensive rebound problem. The Raptors were not getting second chances at all, and everyone played their role. George Niang had a couple of threes. I'm thinking of Paul Reed, who had a little bit of run out there, even though Doc Rivers tried to tell us that we're dumb and we don't know anything and we have no idea how to run a basketball team because his assistant coaches know more than any of us. Well, Doc, I hate to break it to you, but everyone's been screaming for something other than DeAndre Jordan forever now. And I love the fact that the Sixers are now tweeting out audio. It was Tyrese Maxey mic'd up. I saw it this morning, and it was him talking to Paul Reed. And it's just the fact that at 21 years old, he's motivating some guys off the bench. Here we go, Paul. Here we go, baby. Clean up those rebounds. Play with that energy. It's like this kid's 21 years old, leading the pack, not just on the court and executing and playing with that speed. And that three-pointer from the logo, what are we doing here? The Dietz and Watson logo, that is. What are we doing here? He just let it fly, and it was nothing but that. There was so much time for it to be in the air that I remember when I was watching it on my phone, and I'm following it like it's a damn rainbow. low, and I'm watching it go up in the air. It's like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. Oh, the Wells Fargo Center erupts. Tyrese Maxey. He's standing around looking at all the fans. I mean, are you serious? Mike Muscala. Thank you so damn much, Mike Muscala, for what happened when he made that big shot to give the Sixers a chance to draft Maxey. And oh, by the way, don't forget that there was no March Madness that year because of the pandemic. And if Maxey had a chance to shine on a big stage just based off of his recent track record and his body of work and the way that he's so damn committed to his craft, yeah, I would be a little concerned about him even getting to the Sixers at that point. But here we are. Sometimes you got to have luck bounce your way, and that is what happened. While the Brooklyn Nets and some of their beat reporters are posting things on Twitter about Ben Simmons making a dunk, saying, hey, how about you put that online? I mean, while that's happening, that loser, that fraud, our young one is shining and improving every single step of the way. And we are watching a superstar. I've said it months back. Not that I'm the only one saying this. Not that I'm the only one breaking news. But just watching how much he has adapted to this league. And there's still things to improve on, right? We know that there's defensively and all that. But in general, the jump has been so massive. He's calling for ISOs in playoff games when we're talking about Embiid, when we're talking about James Harden, right? James Harden and Joel Embiid will be the difference makers in a playoff run. That's still true. But the fact that in a game, we're looking at Maxey, call everybody off. No. It's my time. It's my time to shine. At 21, who does that? Who does that at 21 years old goes for what he did? It's just magnificent. Embiid 19, 15, and 4. 4 assists was big. I even highlighted that because one of the things I tweeted out prior to the game, and you can utilize Betway, which is a proud sponsor of the Philadelphia 76ers, the official sponsor of the Philadelphia 76ers. I put a couple prop bets out there. It was James Harden over 10.5 assists, and it was Joel Embiid over 3.5 assists. And the idea was James Harden obviously just gets everyone going. But with Joel, that Nick Nurse was going to blitz him. He would send double teams. He would send looks to get the ball out of his hands, knowing that there'd be open looks and some shots for guys out by the perimeter or maybe cutting where Joel Embiid could find an open teammate to put the ball through the hoop, and that's what happened. So I hit on both, which is a tremendous start to the playoff journey, and I'm just so proud of this basketball team. This is the best case scenario that we could have drawn up. There was some angst, and what was one of the things I've told everyone? Every game is different. Well, they lost without Fred VanVleet on the road and this and that and OG. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Game 1 at the center, it doesn't matter. There's no relevance to what happened in that game at the end of the regular season in game 80 or so to what we're about to experience when the moment is bigger. Now, to be fair, I'm going to keep it 100 here. I don't think the game's going to play out the same exact way in game 2. I'd love to be wrong, but I expect, well, here's the thing. The Raptors banged up, and I really hope everything works out for them. I know that they got some testing done, and it seemed like it was negative. I want all of the Raptors healthy. I want them to be out there, and I want them to play. Part of sports, though, is players go down. It looked like Joel Embiid landed on the foot. They had to get helped off. I hope everyone's healthy, and that could, I'm not going to say that would be the difference or winning and losing the series, but it could be the difference in how close the next game is compared to a blowout or something along those lines. But anyway, I expect the Raptors and Nick Nurse to have a different approach, a different game plan. You could talk about their starting rotation. You could talk about different thoughts and concepts, knowing what they've seen and trying to manage and hold Maxey in a different way because you know that he's going to be dangerous. And the fact that he's so quick, no one can keep up with that. Nick Nurse is a great adjuster, and he's great at making changes. So what is he going to see in the tape to now try and suffocate him? And when they do that, how does that now open up the door for some of those other players like Embiid or Harden? Or is it, look, our main focus is still going to be Harden and Embiid. Let's dare Maxey to do it again. And in that mentality, like I said, it's either Maxey executes, and if he misses a couple more threes, and instead of making 5 threes, he makes 3 threes, does it have that same impact? The answer could easily be yes. It could be no. I don't know how they're going to react to it. I don't expect every game to look this way. I do tend to believe, as basketball fans, when the NBA playoffs return and it's the talking heads on ESPN or it's Fox or it's Twitter and social media, after every game, the belief is, well, whoever lost has no chance because X, Y, and Z. It's not that they have no chance. We'll see how game 2 plays out. So just like if the Sixers were to lose, I wouldn't have lost my mind. With the Sixers winning, I'm not losing my mind. I'm going to react rationally. It was the best case scenario that we could have imagined. I've also watched the Sixers blow out the Raptors in Game 3 at home to go up 2-1 in the series, and they lost Game 7 on the road to the Toronto Raptors on a quadruple doink. And everyone thought the series was over after Game 3 because they thought, well, if they win at home in Game 4, now they're up 3-1, they're going back to Toronto. It doesn't work that way. I've seen plenty of basketball to know that this thing is far from over, but it is a pleasant surprise to kind of see the disparity in talent when one team is locked and loaded. When the Sixers play to their max capability, they're far, far, far away from the Raptors. That is clear. It's what does Nick Nurse do to try and force the Sixers to get themselves into trouble so they can't play to their max capacity? And that's a difficult task because I think matchup-wise, the Sixers have the edge and they have the upper echelon talent. And the team that has the upper echelon talent tend to win a playoff series in the NBA playoffs. I thought Ruben Frank had a really good post this morning about the historic performance of Tyrese Maxey. 10 insane Maxey and 76er stats from Game 1. I do want to throw these out there. One of the youngest ever. At 21 years old and 163 days, Tyrese is the third youngest player in NBA postseason history with a 38-point game. Magic Johnson scored 42 for the Lakers versus the Sixers in 1980 finals at 20 years old. LeBron James had consecutive games of 41, 38, and 45, all against the Wizards and the Cavs. That's crazy. 21 years old, 21 points. Maxey's 21-point third quarter makes him the youngest player with a 21-point postseason quarter in the last 26 seasons, which is as far back as the StatHead quarter scoring database goes. That's crazy. Crazy shooting. Despite missing his last 2 shots as he made a bid for a 40-point game, Maxey shot 67% on 14 for 21 from the field. He's the youngest player in NBA history to score 38 points in a postseason game where he shot 67% from the field. The only other player in 76ers history to score at least 38 points in a playoff game and shoot 67% from the field is Charles Barkley. How about that? There's a couple more, obviously, that are in here. We do have a donation coming in from Brandon, $2 donation. Thank you so much, Brandon. Who would I compare Maxey to if I had to? He's his own player, man. He's his own player. You can obviously look around and take pieces away from certain guys, but it's very difficult to. Nothing comes to my mind instantly. He's so damn quick. He's so damn explosive. His burst is unreal, but he's also got that swagger and that attitude that can't be matched. And, you know, just in his, not that other players don't, LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, of course, there's attitude and swag that other guys have out there. Let's not take that out of context, but just in terms of where he's at in his career that I have to factor in on all this, and I can't get over 30% from 3 to 43% from 3. That doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. You know that TikTok where it's, tell me something that sounds so unbelievable, but it's true, but when you say it, everyone's like, there's no way in hell. That's one of those. That's one of those. So I want to lay it out perfectly. That's why I get so irritated when, not that I expect any sort of improvement to that level from everyone, but when you see the inability to improve from a Matisse Thybulle, it hurts. Although they did have a second chance opportunity that swung to Matisse Thybulle. He drilled to 3, which was an electric moment at the Wells Fargo Center. Now, he played just about 20 minutes. That's going to be a massive storyline when the Sixers head to Toronto. 42.7% from 3. just to be perfectly clear on the percentage as a whole. If you're looking for a comparison, though, for Tyrese Maxey, it's hard. It's super hard for me to lay one out there perfectly for you because I think he's Tyrese Maxey. And I love that about him. He's his own guy. He's his own cat. He's got his own personality. See, the reason why it's different, it's not just about, and he does have a Mamba mentality to his work ethic, but there's something to be said about his smiles, his goofiness, he's got that little kid charm. That factors into the whole, well, who else is he molded like? Well, there's not many people in the NBA at his age with this level of personality tied to his ability to execute the way that it's so hard. So my answer is Tyrese Maxey, and I think that's a damn good answer. I want to continue some of these stats. By the way, Joel Embiid had 0 turnovers. Maxey also became the first 76er ever with 38 points and no turnovers in a playoff game. Only 3 76ers have ever done that. One last stat on Maxey. He's the 4th Sixer since 1997 with 23 points in the second half of a playoff game. Iverson did it 7 times. Making threes. Shots were falling. They were motivated. Now, there was some outrage about James Harden. Now, let me take a sip of this iced coffee. I need it badly. Had to stop at Dunkin'. We picked up the puppy this morning. She stayed overnight. We woke up at 6 a.m., drove about 45, 50 minutes, picked her up, and came back. It was a long, long journey, a long emotional night for sure. So, just crazy. I need this iced coffee in my veins to survive today. Okay, so get into Harden. With James Harden, there was this narrative that it's unbelievable he said that there was no pressure before the game. I don't think it's unbelievable to say that. If he was to say, I'm feeling pressure, there would be talking heads and uncomfortable people saying, why is he mentioning how much pressure is on him? He should feel no pressure. Just go play the game. These guys are professionals. These guys are NBA players that have played a lot of hoops. If James Harden says, I'm not going to overthink things, I'm not going to over-worry about everything, I'm going to think about what we did during this hostile training camp, if you will. I'll think about what Doc wants implemented as a team, and I'm going to go do my job. I'm not worried about what he or she says on social media. I'm not worried about the narrative around me in the postseason. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to go play ball. I've played ball long enough. And you can apply this logic to anything you do in life, specifically listening. I do sports talk radio. When I go on the air, do I think that there's pressure, or do I do it so much that it becomes second nature? If you work in a warehouse, which is what I once did prior to all this, I worked at a solar company in the warehouse. I'd make deliveries to solar panels. I would drive the big stake body truck. I'd be moving PVC pipe. I need to get a certain delivery to a certain place at a certain time. Is there pressure to do it? Sure, because you have unionized men, unionized electrician, men and women who need it at 9 o'clock a.m. to start moving PVC and solar panels. There's pressure to get it there on time, to get the job done, and to get this full project done as the project manager needs the supplies. Okay, but at some point, 6 months in, I'm not feeling any more pressure because I know I've been through it already. I've been through the trenches. I understand. Now, there's a difference between knowing the moment, right? You know the moment means more. You know that there's an added layer to it. You know it's the playoffs and not the regular season. And there's a reason why Joel Embiid, midway through, said, I'm pacing myself because there's another layer to all of this. So, yeah, you can easily recognize, but just like anything else in life, there's a balance. Recognition that this means more doesn't automatically mean that James Harden has to bottle up all this pressure and make it weigh him down, where just go play ball. You've done it long enough where you know. Be you, and James Harden was you. Good step backs, not the most efficient. We have our concerns about the hamstring. We have our concerns about breaking guys down off the dribble and beating them to the rack. Who knows what that 1 week did for the hammy and what it will look like after a couple playoff games. They play again Monday. They play Wednesday, and then they have that added day in between Wednesday and Saturday. Normally, you would think traveling to Toronto, it would be before Game 3. So game 3 and game 4 would be closer together. Instead, it's game 2 and game 3 that's closer together. How does the hammy play out over time? I think it's a fair question as a whole. But I will open up the phone lines if anyone does want to chime in at 856-442-9805. 856-442-9805. I see the chat talking about how good James Harden was. Everyone was good. Embiid, 19, 15, and 4. Tobias, 26 points, rebounded. He also had some assists. He finished 9 of 14 from the field, shot a couple threes. James Harden, his 3-ball was good. 14 assists. 14 assists. If you don't see the difference between the way the game is ran as a half court with someone who could professionally get it done, even if he does struggle, scoring, that is. The fact that it's not 9 assists, it's not 8 assists in an open floor game. We're talking lethal amount of assists from James Harden. 14, 15. This is aggressive. I think he's doing it so much that maybe it's just going over the heads of some of, yeah, James Harden had assists, but I want more. Yeah, but when we're talking 14, 15, it's not the same as 9 or 10. Thank you, Broge. You're welcome. Math. It's a lot, though. A lot. It's a big difference. And when you got other cats delivering, whether it's Toby or Maxey, just makes it that much more difficult for a team to keep that pace. So when you saw the Sixers go out to a big lead, the third quarter, all right, Doc has to call a timeout. There's fear in the eyes of all Sixers fans. Not me. I would have bet $1 million that the Raptors made a little push there because they're a good basketball team. And in a basketball game, other teams are going to score. They're going to go on a run of their own. Can you stop their run? And then counter their run. Can you stop their run? Can you call a timeout at the right time? And can you get into your sets? Sixers were getting some shots blocked. They didn't look as good with getting as many open looks as they would like. Well, that Maxey show. All right. So they did what they were supposed to do. But the Raptors are going to make runs throughout 48 minutes. That's inevitable. What do you do when that happens is the question. Thought Doc Rivers had the answers. Nick Nurse is a better strategy guy and a better counter guy, so we'll see what he counters with. But as I alluded to, all leading up to postseason long talk, if that makes sense, if the Sixers players execute the way that we know they can, and if they could play their best version of themselves, their talent is way higher than a lot of these teams. And other teams won't have the answers. So, we'll see how Game 2 goes on Monday. We'll go to Nolan in Hilltown, PA, though, to start things off. What's up, Nolan?
Good morning, Broads. How are you today?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good as well. First of all, I just want to say I hope your puppy is safe and doing well. And second of all, let's cut to the chase. Let's get to the 76ers victory. You can't ask for a better start to this series. It certainly was the Tyrese Maxey show in Game 1. That third quarter, he absolutely balled out, and especially when he made that three-pointer from the logo, my jaw dropped to the floor, and I was like, are you kidding me? Is this guy for real? Maxey definitely balled out. He had a great performance last night. You couldn't ask for anything more out of this 21-year-old phenom.
I agree, and I appreciate the kind words, of course, about the puppy. Right now, she's on a lot of medication. She's upstairs with a cone on her head. She's very droopy and drowsy at the moment. We're going to have to bring her to a dentist specialist to see if she needs some wiring done in her jaw, but she is doing well. She's home now, at least in terms of all that, so I appreciate you mentioning that. But in terms of basketball, You're right about Tyrese Maxey. His ability to take over the game at such a young age. One thing that I always talked about when Ben and Joel were young was wait until they're in their prime, right? And wait until they're 26, 27 years old, and they really develop and understand some postseason failures and what it's like to play in this league and all of that. Well, where they were at 21 and where Tyrese Maxey is at 21 is night and day. And that's no knock on where Ben and Joel were at that time. It's more to highlight where Tyrese is. So if you think this is Joel Embiid, not that everyone grows the same way and has the same path, but just in theory, if Joel is this at 27 years old, 28 years old, imagine what Maxey could be at that time if this is where he's at 21 already.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Maxey is definitely in his prime right now at age 21. He has definitely been blossoming into one of the bright young superstars in the game right now. And one more thing I want to bring up before I end things here is that I think going forward in this series, if Toronto continues to double team Joel Embiid, you're just going to have more open shots for James Harden and Tyrese Maxey.
You definitely are. Appreciate it, Nolan. Thank you so much for all your support. Always an active caller and great chatter as well. When it comes to the double teaming, well, that's your pick your poison. Isn't that what we talked about when James Harden was traded here? What do you do if you have to double Joel Embiid? Which, by the way, I think it's a good idea too, because if you don't, watch what happens. Instead of Maxey, it'll be Joel underneath the basket, and one, getting fouls, mid-range jumpers, going to town, eating players alive. No one can stay with him one-on-one. You just don't have the ability to. So what you saw in Maxey would just be Joel. And if you're a head coach, you can't say Joel beat us, right? That'd be foolish. If Maxey does, you live with that more than Joel Embiid doing it. Now, if Maxey shines again in game 2, you can't just say like, hey, all right, well, we don't want Joel to do it, so we'll just have Maxey burn us 2 games in a row, maybe 3 games in a row. At some point, you got to do something else. But if you start bringing doubles to Maxey, well, now you got James Harden. Now you got Joel Embiid. That's what we were kind of talking about when it comes to superstar talent. That's the difference. With Ben Simmons, no one had to double team him. No one had to respect that. In what world? Double team him for what? He wasn't dunking with a 5-foot guy on him. If he's not going to dunk with a 5-foot guy on him, and we know he doesn't shoot a jump shot every single time, which you can't even run a pick and roll, but if you were to set a screen, you don't have to fight over the top of the screen. You go with the big fella. You couldn't even run it. You did some dribble handoff stuff, which I didn't mind dribble handoff stuff. You actually saw it with Seth Curry and Joel Embiid with the dribble handoffs. It was a fine 2-man game. But there's another layer to it when you could run a traditional pick and roll, pick and pop. And, Nick Nurse is going to have to pick his poison. And I just feel as great of a head coach as Nick Nurse is, not that I'm getting blown away by one game. It was a great start. And I am super pumped up and I am super happy. And if I said this was the best, if you said, bro, what's the best circumstance that you could possibly find the Sixers in after game 1 Saturday night? This is exactly how I would lay it out to you. This would be my blueprint. So with that, there's not much I could be other than stoked. Looking at this series, though, you look at what Nick Nurse has. He might be able to throw different looks, but I don't know if he's necessarily going to have the answers roster-wise. And that's why I always go back to the coach is the coach. I'll tip my cap to Nick Nurse. If Doc Rivers wins the series, I'll still tell you that Nick Nurse is an overall better coach than Doc Rivers, no matter what happens in this series. It just happens to be that one guy has Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Tyrese Maxey being studs, while the other guy loses Kawhi Leonard and is playing with Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby. How about all those guys? All the people in my comments after game 1 about Pascal Siakam being like the greatest player to ever play basketball. He's a good player. He's a good player in the NBA. They have good players. When it gets to this time of the year, you need more than good players. And I think you see the difference in game 1 on how that played out. All right, we're going to go back to the phones. Here we go.
We are gathered here today to mourn the extinction of an overhyped Toronto team that Tyrese Maxey almost scored a career high on. And a moment of silence for those saying Fred VanVleet would torch the Sixers to start the series.
Look, I'm sure they'll lose a game this series and the Raptors will feel good about things and whatnot. And I'm just trying to stay even keel here. I'm trying to let everybody know that I am on cloud 9 because it is super fun to think about what they did. And it was super fun to see the Wells Fargo Center look that way. Let's be realistic. It's been hostile. It's been a bit uncomfortable. There's been some weird feelings in the stomachs of Sixers fans over the last, let's say, 1 week of the regular season because they weren't playing great ball. So to see them explode, to see them perform at such a high rate, and everyone did their job so beautifully, except for Danny Green. But, I have optimism. He shot 10 threes the other night. Just the fact he's putting them up. It means so much more for spacing. And I know fans might not want to hear this, but there is something about the professionalism of Danny Green in detailed sets that matter, that opens up other areas of the offense and plays. It's not going to be eye-popping. It's sort of like in hockey. If a defenseman chips the puck off the glass and a forward swoops in full speed, picks up the puck in the neutral zone, and there's a 3-on-2, one guy drives the net, the pass goes to the high slot, backdoor, tic-tac-toe, great play. Everyone looks at Travis Konechny, Claude Giroux, JVR, whoever's on the line rush and say that was awesome. But there was a play that happened in the D zone, which was a defenseman with a professional stick check, a poke check, gets the puck off the forward stick of the opposing team, chips it off the glass that even started that. Sometimes there's things out there with Danny Green. It might not be him making a shot or drilling a shot, but there's details in sets. There's things that matter that don't really pop off the screen. And I'm not going to sell you that, he's a magician and he's electric and he's dynamic and he's, just one of the greatest ever in the history of basketball. But there is a side to it that I do value. I'm not going to tell you I overvalue it and bring it to like the nth level here, the nth degree, right? I don't want to bring it to an obnoxious extreme, but it's enough that it still matters. And I think Doc Rivers is handling that roster spot and that starting rotation the best way he can. Body-wise, when you go to Toronto, though, those 20 minutes of Matisse Thybulle will be a consideration. And I don't know what they're going to elect to do. But they played a lot of guys yesterday. And that's what happens when you blow an opponent out. 131 to 111. A lot of guys fouled out for Toronto. This team, with the way that they play, they could put guys in foul trouble. Now, Fred VanVleet early, couple seconds in, you see the whistle, you see the disgust on his face. Well, that's on you, Frederick. Why don't you play a little bit better? They got Isaiah Joe and Ferk in there. Ferk with an assist. Joe played 2 minutes. Furkan played 3. Obviously, that's at the end of the game. Milton, 3 for 4. 1 for 1 from 3. He finished with 10 points off the bench in 14 minutes. Matisse Thybulle, 19. Reed, 11. Niang, 16. You just saw your players really, 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 really dominate the opposition. Scotty Barnes. Yeah, the chat's mentioning Scotty Barnes. I just hope that they can get as healthy as possible for the next game, of course. Ethan texts in from Wayne, PA. What's up, Ethan? I was at the game last night, and it was absolutely electric in there. I thought, although Embiid only had 19 points, he was amazing on the glass and the defensive end. He also had no turnovers. I think if Nick Nurse adjusts, he may have to take all the doubles away from Joel because guys are hitting open looks, and good luck guarding Joel one-on-one. Hooper Dog is doing better. Happy Easter. Happy Easter, everyone, and thank you, Ethan, for the kind words in regards to Zola. And yeah, that's where the pick your poison comes into play, and that's why it's going to be extremely difficult for Nick Nurse to dial up some of his thoughts and some of his concepts for what's going to happen in game 2. I don't know how you take away doubles from Joel, right? Let's put ourselves in the other shoes. If we're Raptors fans and we think about the MVP of the league, or I should say the MVP of the league that's getting absolutely screwed and boned from winning the MVP of the league, the guy who led the NBA in all of scoring as a 7'2" man at the center position. Yeah, that guy. You can't play him one-on-one, even if you're getting killed elsewhere. You just can't, especially not for game 2. If it happens 3 games in a row, then maybe. But at this point, I'd have to imagine that if I'm Nick Nurse, I'm daring Tyrese Maxey to do that again. I'm not saying he's incapable of doing it again, because I think he damn sure can. And quite frankly, I think he damn sure will. But I'll take my percentages, because that's what it comes down to. The percentages. What makes it a less percentage of Joel dominating the game? I'll take my chances with Maxey over Joel. And we'll see. At some point, though, you can't just keep getting haymakers to the jaw, haymakers to the jaw, haymakers to the jaw. And then from there, Joel gets his time. So it's going to be a wild ride, that's for sure, on Monday. But with that, a little short today. Normally, not that 40 minutes is short. Sometimes we go an hour, anywhere ranging between 30 and an hour, sometimes a little longer. Regardless, though, it's been a crazy, emotional 24 hours, no doubt about it. I got the Phils on my mind, too, by the way. They exploded in Miami. Let's see what they can do today to salvage a split in a 4-game set. I plan on talking about the Phillies tonight. I'm on the radio today, noon to 4:30 on the Fanatic. So if you want to hang out, listen to me talk about the Sixers, talk about the Phillies a little bit more today, 97.5 The Fanatic from noon to 4:30. You can hear me there. I plan late tonight to talk about the last 2 Phillies games as a whole. We'll see what happens, though. There's a lot going on. I just want to give you just a laydown of my mindset moving forward here. But thank you guys so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. Go Sixers. Great start to the series, and I'll catch you guys later on.